Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life. Today we are going to freeze dry scrambled eggs. Why only scrambled eggs, you ask? Because two reasons. One, it's the only kind of eggs I actually like. And for two, other kinds of eggs don't reconstitute well out of the freeze dryer. The yolk kind of creates this really hard shell around the egg and the water just doesn't penetrate it when you try to add it back in. Doesn't reconstitute, doesn't make it tasty. So, scrambled eggs. Obviously, that's why they're the best. So, I didn't feel like you needed to watch me crack 25 eggs, so I did that without you. What we're gonna do is we're gonna scramble them up with my immersion blender because it works really well, really fast, and I'm really lazy. So that's what we're gonna use to scramble them all up. Then we're gonna pour them on our Harvest Right freeze dryer trays. We're gonna put them in the freezer in our deep freeze and let them freeze overnight. Tomorrow morning they should be fully frozen and we will throw them in our freeze dryer then to kind of speed up the freeze dryer process. It'll take the freeze dryer maybe about a day, maybe less because they're already frozen. And then we'll take them out, we'll powder them and store them in Mylar bags for 25 to 30 years. Step 1, immersion blender. Make sure there's none that snuck through. Once in a while one gets stuck in there and doesn't want to scramble up. The next step is pouring them on the trays, which I'm not going to do here because that turns into a train wreck. So if I pour them on here, I then have to walk this tray full of liquid yucky eggs all the way across my kitchen to the freezer, and probably it's fine and I won't spill much, but I really don't want to wear scrambled eggs today. So we are going to put the tray in the freezer and fill it there and not destroy my kitchen. All right, so we're going to pour these on our trays. Hopefully not make too much of a mess. Just like that. That's the mess we were trying to avoid. Our eggs are frozen, so it's time to get them into the freeze dryer. The first thing we're going to do is press start and let it cool down. It wants 15 minutes to cool down before we put our food in there. The longer you wait, the colder it's going to get. And remember, it's not gonna actually start trying to build that vacuum until it gets down to freezing. So we wanna wait at least 15 minutes before we get our food in there and close the drain valve so it can build that vacuum when it's ready. So I'll see you in a few more minutes. It's been about 20 minutes. It's down to 55 degrees, but we are going to load our eggs into our freeze dryer and get it started. So we just grab our really cold and frozen trays, load them in there. Our trays loaded up. We want to pull our ring out just a little bit to make sure that we're going to get a good seal. Shut our door, turn it all the way, and we should see a little black line where the door has pushed into that seal. Then we're going to close our drain valve. And then we just hit continue. And our freeze dryer will tell us when it's done. We have ours preset with 12 hours of extra dry time, so if it finishes while we're at work or out of the house, it will just keep pulling that moisture out, any moisture that may remain at that point, until we're ready to take it out and check it, or it's at that 12 hours. So we'll check it tomorrow and see where we are. It's been about 24 hours. Our freeze dryer has been done for about 6 hours, so we're gonna open it up and test it out, see how we're doing. So first we just hit the cancel button. And we make sure our drain hose is not submerged. And we open our drain valve. Give it maybe a minute to depressurize before we can open the door. Okay. So to check these, just like anything, we're gonna feel them and make sure that they feel warm and not cold. If they feel cold, it's because there's still moisture in there. This drum is freezing. It's these heat pads that keep it warm, so they're melting any of the moisture so it can be sucked out. So, feels nice and warm and nice and dry, so we're gonna move them over to the kitchen and start bagging these up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna scoop all of this into our Ninja, powder it all up. It's already pretty flaky and powdery, and then pour it into our bags. Now that we've got everything bagged up here, we're gonna throw in our oxygen absorbers and seal them up. So these are just small 100 cc oxygen absorbers. And even though that's probably fine for a little pint-sized bag, I'm gonna put 2 in each. Now in a gallon bag, you would use one 300 cc oxygen absorber. So these are fine. And then we're gonna seal these. We're first going to use our zipper seals, and then we are going to use our impulse sealer, or if you don't have one of those, you can just use a flat iron to seal the tops of your bags and basically melt the bag together to keep any oxygen out. This is our Harvest Right impulse sealer. It came with the freeze dryer, but you can of course buy it separately. Flat iron works just as well, much cheaper, but very, very simple to use. You plug it in, press it down until the light goes off, and then it is melted back up. So we've sealed our oxygen absorbers back up, and then we're gonna seal each of our bags. We wanna make sure that that seal is above the zipper line so that once you cut off that melted seal, you can reseal it with that zipper when it actually comes time to use these things. That one didn't, I didn't wait for the light. There we go. All right, freeze drying eggs is really that simple. So next, how do you reconstitute them and eat them? Now we're gonna test out our freeze-dried eggs and reconstitute them and cook them up. So to do that, we are gonna take 2 tablespoons of egg powder for every egg, essentially, that we wanna reconstitute. So I'm gonna do an egg and a half, just because 1 egg is such a small amount. And the ratio there is 2 tablespoons of egg powder to 2 tablespoons of water. So for an egg and a half, it's 3 and 3. And then it's just a little bit extra. So not even a half a tablespoon. And we're gonna mix that up. See how we feel about it. And add a little bit more water if we feel like it needs it. A little bit more. And it looks like an egg. And my stovetop here is kind of overheated a little bit. It burned the oil. That's okay, because this is just a test. It doesn't have to be perfect. And to be fair, I probably do that half the time I'm cooking anyway. If you're hoping to see me flip an omelet, it is not going to happen. I have not mastered that skill. Normally I'm just kind of chopping it up and mixing it in with cheese and some kind of vegetable. But that is it. Doesn't look appetizing because I burnt the oil, but that's our scrambled egg. So now we test it. And it tastes like a scrambled egg. So that's simple. But that powder will last 25 to 30 years. So great way to save your extra eggs if you have chickens, if you have an abundance of eggs. You don't have to worry about it when they're brooding and whatnot. You don't have a lot of eggs on hand. You're still ready to go for any recipe that comes along. Thank you for joining us today at Homestead for Life.